have to do with the business community here on the Monterey Peninsula and some of the more recent developments that we've had downtown. Today our guests are, again, Bicycle Dave, 15-year bicycle touring expert, and the Rev, back again as well, two of the fixtures here on Little Victories, as well as Aaron, my co-host from Visalia, California. I caught a lot of grief last week for the Fresno thing, by the way. I actually
Central Valley, then just you know, kind of.
I made a comment. We made a comment last week about the Fresno thing, about splitting the state of California. And I was up at Veterans Park camping because I haven't camped all summer, so I decided to take some time and do some camping. And there was a lovely couple from Fresno and their cousin, probably in their 60s. And being the promoter and guy that I am, I went and showed them the show and let them watch it and left and came back and walked right into the moment where we talked about, you know, splitting California and the loser gets Fresno. And got a pretty awkward silence from him, and then apologized and said, "Hey, look, you know, we didn't really mean what we said. Fresno's a great place."
Yeah.
And Aaron
I'm
actually
from
cleaned it up.
Technical
Yeah.
difficulties.
Oh man, it was such a great flow.
Everything's working. It's just that it's not wrong.
Ah, it's okay. We'll start over. Yeah.
I hurt your feelings?
Well, yeah. No, it was actually funny. It actually
It'll be
worked
fine.
out
It's
really,
nice.
really well.
No, it'll be fine. Don't worry.
Yeah, it'll be fine. I think,
You
all
should
right.
hear in Southern California.
Yeah, let 'em
where
come on
people
in.
bust each other's chops from where they're from.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Well,
All the time.
People tell you where they're from. You say, "Oh yeah, our car broke down there one time. We couldn't wait to get out of there."
Here we go, and we're rolling. All right, here we go. Greetings, fellow travelers, and welcome to this episode of Little Victories. My name is Turtle. Two guests today are Bicycle Dave, a 15-year bicycle touring expert, and the Rev, who interjects
Thanks for stopping
his
by.
newfound situation in the disenfranchised community, as well as Aaron, my co-host from Visalia. And speaking of the Central Valley, I wanted to apologize to some people that I met last week who were from Fresno. We had brought up a little subject last week about California splitting into two parts and the fact that the loser gets Fresno. And they happened to be from Fresno, so it was a little awkward for a minute there.
But funny.
I allowed them to see the playback and completely forgot that we had made that comment. And when I came walking back up from where my camp, they looked at me and said, "Really, Fresno? Loser gets Fresno?" And
I'm from Fresno.
yeah, and you did. You definitely did defend them. That was appreciated because it helped me to clean that situation up. But
Fresno's awesome.
they were really good people. They weren't really offended, but they definitely, you know, raised an eyebrow at me. So what we're going to talk about this week is some of the local developments that we've had in the business community downtown Monterey. And I'm sure you guys know there's a new beer garden downtown near the Transit Plaza and Alvarado Street. Basically, it's, you know, a couple of storage containers, one with beer taps in it, and the other one with a couple of restrooms, and that's pretty much it. There's no food service there, strictly an alcohol business, and that got me thinking. And a friend of mine were talking about it, and we just kind of wondered, you know, how, for one, how did you get a business that serves only alcohol and doesn't serve food in an area where you already have, within a 1 mile radius, over 40 businesses that sell alcohol, and you know, it doesn't, to me, it doesn't make sense, nor did it to my friend who we, again, we're discussing this. And so I guess the question that I really want to ask today is, where is and what is the positive contribution to the community by putting a alcohol business right in the epicenter of the Transit Plaza, where we already have a huge drug and alcohol problem? And what is the solution? And is there a solution that can make this a positive attribute to the community here on the Monterey Peninsula? So, Dave, I know you're dying to chime in here. I can see you chomping at the bit, so fire away, my friend.
But you got to separate the two issues.
Okay.
The people who put in the bar are responsible for the drug and alcohol problem being there.
True.
Okay. Now it's a little awkward, but that's not really on them.
Right.
what's on them is they were given a license by the city to operate in this manner. And while all other people with liquor licenses have to have parking, have to have food service, so you could in theory sober up if you wanted to before you drive home. And that's all a condition of other people's liquor license.
Right.
I think there should be equality in the liquor licenses.
Sure.
People shouldn't receive special privileges in this town, although this town is very much about special privileges. And especially in the old Monterey business area.
Right.
Where they got all that hype and everything going on, this is wonderful, that's wonderful. And it's really just exploitation of the resources for a limited few people to make money.
Right. So, I mean, do you feel like most people feel that it was just basically revenue?
Absolutely, that's what talks in Monterey. And the place is so unattractive, I drink beer, and I would not drink beer there. It's
Yeah,
like a
it's-
have-a-heart trap. It looks like a cage. You walk into a trap.
Yeah.
You have to go through a door,
Almost like a
usually
gate.
getting in a cage is a bad experience after you've
Right.
been drinking beer.
Right.
Because
Yeah.
it means your evening did not end successfully.
Exactly, and it's funny that you bring
know.
that up because our new camera girl, Rihanna, just was telling me she stays in that parking lot in her car, and people will be out there, all night long, with not being too drunk to drive, and they just sit out there and wail and, and have nowhere else to go
Yeah.
because they can't drive yet because they're too drunk, and it's like,
Which is a great thing that they're not driving
well,
while
yes,
they're
of
drunk.
course,
at the
but
same
they're
time.
just,
They
around
need to
you.
work on the whaling.
Yeah, exactly, work on the whaling at least.
And Rev, you had a
I
different
feel
perspective from the revenue side?
I feel incompetent now to talk about this because I've never seen the things that these people have said that they've seen. All I see is that they're doing business. If they're doing business, that means somebody's working. If somebody's working, that means they have a job. If they have a job, that means they can get a house, they can have a home, they can get a car, they can do whatever they want. You need money, and money makes the world go round. If somebody's making money, is it fair that one person's making more money than the other? I don't know, that's Donald Trump.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Trump's the guy to ask, but at the same
But he
time.
does not, he's not against making money.
Right, and I
His
think-
thing is make money, make it as much as you can, as often as you can. I mean, and you have it to spend, you have it to give, you have it to do things with. Now, if you're just saying, why isn't there a restaurant there? Because there's other restaurants, I mean, there's 40 restaurants, but there aren't 40 restaurants where you can sit out by the transit center in the sun and enjoy the beautiful air of Monterey.
And let me clarify that. The policy is basically that you can bring in food from any of the local establishments that are nearby, which is great. There's a burger place, there's a Mexican food place, there's several other places, even Trader Joe's.
Why bring it in? Why aren't they delivering? Why isn't there a stand out there with these little selections in there like a automat? You
Yeah.
go in there, you put in $5, $10, $15, and you get something out of
Yeah.
it instead of having to go there carrying it like a schmo.
Yeah, well, again, I think that's how they kind of dealt with that food problem, or how I don't know, I won't speculate, but it definitely is not normal for a liquor license to be, issued without serving food. I mean, that's kind of a requirement.
Instead of a menu, you have a bunch of different menus from
Right.
different places, right? So they call up, you tell them
Yeah.
the order, and then they deliver it in,
Hey.
and everybody's happy. Those restaurants that aren't getting that business because of the non-high traffic flow in that area
Yeah.
are gonna be participating a little bit, so everybody can make. That's the problem. When one person makes so much that he's not willing to think about things to make other people make a little bit. I mean, I'm not asking for much, I'm just asking for a little jelly on my peanut butter sandwich,
Well, here's an idea. I mean, you just suggested something that I think is actually brilliant. Now, there's, a couple of food delivery services.
Exactly.
in the
So
peninsula.
more jobs.
So maybe.
Kids on bikes, whatever.
What you could do as a project is go to those local delivery places and maybe help them form a strategic partnership with Fieldworks to where, they could deliver. They could create an account, with Fieldworks and.
Well, for $100 an hour, I'll consult
Right,
with those
well,
guys.
there you go. I mean, again, you know me, teach a man to fish, right?
Exactly,
Let's
that's
get you
how I
back to the
fish,
mainstream
$100 an
society.
hour. I'll be more than
Yeah.
happy to be a business planner.
So
But I mean,
so-
that makes sense, right? I mean, if there's 40 businesses around, that means there's 40 places that you can have delivered to, or you can have the top 3 items or
Right.
whatever from each place. I mean, don't give the guy a hard time, make him send fries across the world.
well, that's-
Unless they're good fries, unless, I make them, I make good fries.
No, I agree. Let's discuss that after the show. There's definitely a possibility there,
And then you got guys on bikes, and you have bikes, right? So
Sure.
bicycle messengers, boom,
Yeah.
all of a sudden the kid's working, maybe he's working for tips.
Well, my
All
dear
fine.
friend Mikey from
$5 an hour,
Greenfield.
$10 an hour is better than $0 an
Yeah.
hour, and you get good exercise, and you get to see Monterey.
Yeah, it's already a new idea to have, just serving alcohol in a business. So why not make it even more new and input a delivery service,
Sure.
even more innovative.
Yeah.
Just put a payphone in the bar and say, call out wherever you want,
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding,
right.
yeah.
if you don't have a cell phone.
Just tell them where to go.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I
Go
didn't mean
for
to-
it.
That's terrible of me. Horrible segue. No, what I was going to say was, okay, so we've kind of talked about that. Now, the other part of this equation that I want to discuss and that I'm putting out there is that the primary focus is, what is the positive contribution to the community versus, say, one of my other regulars, you guys know, Haas, who goes out and on weekends sits in front of the fish hopper right by where you work making candles, the global candle. He sits out there on Saturdays and Sundays and makes sure that no one under the age of 21 goes underneath the pier where adult activities, let's call them, are going on, and he feels that it's inappropriate that minors under the age of 21 are there.
I thought nobody was supposed to be under that pier.
Well, nobody's supposed to,
Private
but,
pier, it's private property.
yeah,
Nobody's supposed to be on that
exactly.
pier. That's-
But,
That
but
should be a
People do.
park.
right, but they
thing,
do.
or-
So the,
Exactly.
or,
so the idea is that because of what he does, he prevents kids from going down there and seeing whatever's going on. What is a more positive contribution to the community? A homeless person who is conscious of what's going on in a certain area, or a newly formed beer garden that just sells alcohol in, again, the epicenter of alcohol and drugs right there at the Transit Plaza. Dave, you had a great comment earlier when we were talking the pre-show. That was, the people that can afford to buy the beer there can look out across the street at the plaza and kind of see,
Well, yeah.
which, is that the road that they're headed down? Is that
Well, it just seems that way, that when I've gone past there and it's been open, everybody's watching the transit center. And so, you come have a beer and you watch the wackos.
It's cheaper than a
all
movie.
You're safe behind the cage.
Right,
That's
right.
The cage is there for your
Cheaper than a
protection.
movie.
It's
I
kind of
think
like
it all
the,
comes down to perspective with the whole thing. Because obviously there are some downsides with having more alcohol available in that area and everything. But like Rev said, it does create jobs, and maybe continue to create more jobs if
And there's
continue
tax.
to innovate.
And there's tax.
Yeah.
And that they bought permits.
Yeah.
And they paid for inspections on all
Yeah.
the construction and everything, no matter how backward it looks.
right.
Yeah.
With the containers and stuff. And
So we
Well-
just have to see the positive in the both of them, I mean, obviously it's a very positive thing what Haas is doing, preventing that. And it may not seem on the surface like a super positive thing, but maybe it can be in some ways.
I think you're definitely onto something here with finding a solution. What is a positive solution to what has happened? Because obviously we're not going to be able to go down there. I mean, we could, but we could raise a ruckus, picketing and boycotting and all that. That's not the solution. What can we maybe suggest? Maybe somebody could go down there and say, hey, look, why don't you have like some sort of an event, some sort of a community event that benefits the homeless community? I would go down there as a representative of my foundation and maybe discuss this with them at length, how we can, because it's basically empty most of the time, maybe we could get it set up to where we could utilize the facility for something like maybe when they do the free lunch for Salvation Army or whatever. Why couldn't they, provide a facility for once a week, a place for people to come and use a local church or resource to come down and take an opportunity to take care of the community, whether it's food or maybe clothing donations or something like that. Again, this is a wide open,
A lot of good ideas.
possibility, but something to think about.
I got another point too.
Okay.
Is that you talk about it being a distressing element on the environment.
Right.
Look at let's look at the coffee shop.
Right.
There's a coffee shop right next door.
Right.
That I've never been in an insane asylum.
Right.
But I don't have to imagine what it'd be like after drinking coffee in there. There's people going off, there's all kinds of stuff going on.
Yeah.
And the outlets are taken up by people who come in and don't even buy anything.
Right.
But they need 4 outlets.
Right.
And everybody's competing. My psychiatric condition is worse than yours.
Yeah.
So how detrimental,
Yeah.
for this area, the impact in this area.
Sure.
I mean, like, really,
Well, now you can get your beer right there and then go next door and get your coffee and sober up, yeah?
Well, plus there's all kinds of live entertainment. There's people constantly going off, doing unusual things.
Yeah.
And so that's,
which, you know.
Is a
these-
draw.
Yeah,
Down-
It makes
in-
it charming.
yeah.
Down in Southern
It's
California.
entertaining, that's for sure. I've seen some
Yeah, you
pretty
won't be
entertaining
bored.
stuff.
Down in Southern California, they take tour buses up and down Hollywood Boulevard and show them everybody.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's,
Well, at least here you're in this, behind the safety of a cage, right?
that's right.
It is that, so something to consider as well. But that kind of raises another interesting thing, and that is, you know, I've been doing this for 6 years out here. Humble Beginnings and my foundation started in 2011, officially launched last year, and in that time, I've seen a myriad of things. Some things pretty hilarious, some things pretty disheartening, and you know, even disturbing. The way that the homeless community micromanages itself, though, overall is pretty impressive. You've been doing this for over 15 years
Yeah.
on the road.
Yeah.
So my question is to you is, and we talked about change before, and we just kind of
Yeah.
just glazed over it. In this community on the beachfront, and in particular the Bum Beach, they call it, the window to the bay.
Yeah.
I have experienced 2 local resources for the first time since I started this. One is the Sunday feed at 8 o'clock by Al, I believe is the
Yeah.
gentleman, and then the
Yes.
other one is the Friday 10 o'clock feed
That's-
with
that's Anna.
with Anna from the Catholic Church, who just, I went down there again to experience this resource, to see what it was about, because if I'm going to refer people to it, then I want to know what it's doing, and if it's, you know, something that I feel is, you know, could be improved on or whatever. The food was amazing. I mean, it wasn't a bunch of carbs. It wasn't a bunch of, there was proteins. I mean, there was chunks of chicken, there was chicken breast, there was.
Oh, she's a very good cook.
Yeah, and so kudos to her for everything that she's doing. She's been doing this
Yours
for
is
years.
good?
It's the 10 o'clock feed on Friday, and it's real easy to remember. This is for my clients that are out there that are new to the area or don't know anything about local resources. The easiest way to remember it is, my friend Dave told me, he says, 10-9-8. 10 o'clock on Friday is at Window by the Bay, right by the volleyball courts, across from El Estero. 9 o'clock on Saturday is Breakfast in the Park with Pastor Jim and Pastor Work Ministries. And at 8 o'clock on Sunday is with Al, and that's again back at Window by the Bay, right there by the volleyball courts. So just 10-9-8. And that's how
And
you're
Monday
doing
through Thursday, the Salvation Army feeds at the platform. On the weekends too, both days, there's people that feed like lunch.
Yeah.
So therefore, it's like when people dig in their trash for food, that's really not necessary.
it. Yeah,
Definitely.
I have to
Generous
say,
things
you will never
going on.
starve here in Monterey
No,
if
there's
you're
a lot of
homeless.
generous
It
things
is-
going on.
Yeah.
It is wonderful though. I did. I was driving down Del Monte the other day, and there was 2 perfect little Tupperware leftover little things of food on the trash can, and my friends pointed it out, and I said, "Yep, we shared that idea."
Yeah, yeah.
That's what people
It
do,
is a
so you
great
don't have to dig in a trash can
Exactly.
for food.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's very nice.
Yeah.
And we started
it was
doing that-
Awesome to see it. Definitely.
I started pushing that idea about 4 years ago, and it was, you know, a guy that was saying, "Hey, man, you know, 'cause I wish people would just put the food on top of garbage cans. Why do they throw their food away?" You know, because what would generally happen is you get your to-go tray, and then you leave the restaurant, and then halfway down Alvarado or wherever you're at, you're like, "Oh, I want to carry
Somebody
this."
suggests a bar to go to.
Yeah, and you toss it in the garbage,
Let's go
and then
check out the new beer joint.
There you
exactly. And
There you
so the food ends up
Bring
in the
your own
trash.
food, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
this way, what
Exactly.
happened
Go
was,
run by the trash cans or whatever.
what happened was that we ended up, you know, I ended up telling people, hey, listen, you know, if you're going to take your food out and you know, give it to somebody, because a lot of people don't want to engage with my clients because they're scary or whatever. They might have their kids with them. So the idea was to tell them to put that on top of the garbage can.
It's a great idea.
And it's worked. I mean,
Yeah,
I
was really
literally,
surprised to see it when we had been talking about it so much, and then I saw it and was just like, "Oh, this is actually happening!
Yeah.
It's awesome!"
changing the world one little victory at a time,
Little-
man.
one little victory at a time.
That's how it works. And, you know, again, it does 2 things, like Dave said. One, it eliminates some of the food waste that we have. 2, it, you know, gives them value.
Yeah.
Because now, instead of having to look into the garbage cans, now it's
right
right there
there.
on top. And that might be just enough, you know, we don't know whether it is or not, but it might be just enough for that client to say, you know what, I do have value. I do.
It beats
you know,
living like a possum, digging in a garbage can for cans
Right.
and stuff. Although guys who do that are still ahead of people on welfare, because at least they're doing something for themselves.
Yeah, yeah, and look at Barney.
But that's true, but, you know, what I would like to point out too, in the homeless population, is what you see like at Windows by the Bay and the Bum Beach and everything, that's
Yeah.
a small percentage of the homeless.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's just as many guys on fishing boats that when they're not working on the boat, they're homeless.
Yeah.
There's guys on pot farms living in tents, and they're every bit as homeless as
Yeah.
everybody else is.
Yeah.
They just function differently
Right.
in
And-
society.
And most of them are happier than most.
Well, that's what makes everybody hate you when you're
Yeah,
happy.
thank you. And that's a huge point. Now, you've seen this just recently because you're new to the disenfranchised community and stuff. But have you noticed the look that you get? I had a really weird thing happen to me about a month and a half ago. I was working with a friend of mine and just gotten off work, and I'm wearing my jeans and my flannel and my beanie and my backpack. And I'm going down, it's Tuesday, it's farmer's market day, and I'm walking down Alvarado, and as I'm about 30 yards in, I start realizing I'm getting the look. Now, the look is, you know, that look of, you know, ooh, you're a homeless person, you know, and it's just kind of it's a mix between envy and hate because, you know, they don't know what to make of you. And when I'm in my cycling gear and walking down that same street in my, what I call my branded business suit, completely different. You know, you don't get that look at all. And so I came to the realization that, man, people are just on a split instant making an opinion of me, forming an opinion of me. How do you deal with that? I mean,
Love, baby. Everybody I look at it, I'm looking at you with, I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to shed that message. I'm trying to share that message. So whatever you have that's a negative thing, how do I know maybe your kid just died?
Yeah.
Maybe you just lost your job. Maybe you just lost your house. Maybe your wife left you. Maybe you found her cheating with your best friend. Whatever it is, I don't know you, but I'm
Yeah.
going to say I love you, job one.
And that's coming from, you know,
And that's coming from the heart. That just made
Yeah.
all the hairs rise up on my arm.
Yeah,
Man,
that's-
if you can
that's
feel
life.
that out there, I mean, come on, no, seriously, get a little of this. I mean,
Yeah.
that's healing. That's
Yeah.
healthy. That's raising your vibration. You raise your vibration, you raise your life. You raise your life, you make everything better. And life is not what you have, because you didn't take anything in this world. You're not going to bring anything out of this world. All you have is love. Period. The Beatles said that.
It's
Well,
life. You breathe
why
it
you-
in. It
yeah.
comes through your body. It's everything.
You don't feel
Love
that?
is everything.
mean,
I feel it. Yes, of
I'm-
course.
I'm in on that.
Yeah,
Give
I
Turtle-
know
give
exactly.
Turtle-
oh yeah,
Give
no, I
Turtle-
get
give
it.
Turtle-
Remember, I work in energy.
give
I
Turtle
work
a
in energy all the
give Turtle a
time,
little.
and
You know?
all of this, you know, I feel all the time, and I think that's why I do what I do,
Exactly.
because I know
Exactly.
when somebody's hurting, I know when somebody's joyful, I know when they need help. I reach out to everybody, but there are some that I reach out to even more than others because I see the potential.
Joyful
I have
all
a
the
client
time.
recently, as a matter of fact, who just got employment and is now, you know, on a fast track to making a huge change in their life. And, you know, that isn't a little victory, that's a huge victory.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it's
Every
not
little
about,
victory is a huge victory.
yeah, but it's not about wins or
Life
losses.
is a process.
It's about just the fact that, hey, look, you know, this is a human being who needs to have a better, excuse me for my microphone going sideways.
I thought the
again.
dragon came.
Yeah, that was, I was suddenly
Oh, dude.
possessed, you know. Nothing like live
Vehicle
TV. But to be able to make that change, and my work is done, you know, as I say, you know, if I give you a toolbox and you walk a mile down the road and you take that toolbox and you sit it on the road and you sit down on it, that's up to you. But if I give you that toolbox and you walk a mile down the road and you open that toolbox and you use those tools to get farther down the road, my work is done. You know, I accomplished what I set out to do for that individual. And it's always cool to see them just flourish and to see them grow.
Yeah,
and
but when you
become.
open your toolbox, you take out tools and you fix somebody's bicycle and help them get down.
There is that, yeah,
And that's the message.
Exactly,
yeah,
If you're not helping somebody, you're helping nobody, not even yourself.
yeah,
Exactly.
true enough. Speaking of bikes, you know, you've been doing this for 15 years.
Yeah.
You're on a Surly Mundo,
No,
non-e-bike.
Yuba
with-
Mundo.
Yeah, that thing.
Yuba.
Yuba Mundo. Okay, so,
Are
I mean,
intense.
I mean, that's a lot of gear you got.
Yeah.
I do.
How much weight are you carrying?
Why, 325 pounds?
Oh my
But
goodness.
half of that is just to stay in shape because the highway's closed. Because if I don't stay in shape, I tend to drink a little too much and eat too much,
Yeah.
and I put on weight. And then when I go to travel, it's not happy.
Work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
well,
Especially
I got to stay in
325
shape.
pounds.
Yeah.
So, you know, going back again, I want to kind of go back to this original topic we were talking
Okay.
about, because it's really important. I just, does anybody here have any suggestions for a solution? you know, or what can be done to, you know, make this a positive business.
I really think you can make them comply with the liquor license because they've obviously been granted special privileges.
Right.
And the people with the most legitimate grievance against them probably would be other people who had to comply with the liquor license.
Yeah.
Because this is plainly not equality under the law.
No, no, like I
And,
said, I don't know how that worked. I'm assuming,
Me neither.
parent company kind of probably had permits already in place. However that, you know, works again, it's all local
Well,
government,
yeah.
so it doesn't really matter,
Yeah,
but.
the place is only gonna be there for the first
I-
lawsuit.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, I assume the best solution is going to be just to wait and see how it all plays out with it,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
and see if it becomes an actual issue, you know, like real issue, or if it's just gonna be like having bars right there on Alvarado, you know, if it's gonna be just how it always has been, or if it's really gonna add some new, you know,
Life.
tension there, you know.
You know, I hope it doesn't become the, you know, kind of the haves and the have-nots because of the
It already
Transit
is,
Plaza
bro.
and the, you know, the beer garden. Because there's going to be these interactions. Matter of fact, I did hear one of my clients say the other day, yelled at a person in the beer garden about the fact that, what, you're better than me just because you're behind the wall?
Oh,
Yeah.
Or a fence, and I kind of let that one go and just kept on walking because, you know, it usually escalates from there.
Dang.
And I was just sitting there waiting for the bus, and they had a complete dialogue. I mean, it wasn't a friendly dialogue by any means.
Well, but, you know, you're not, so there, what you go is you're debating back and forth.
Right.
And pretty soon they'll have a 400 meat boy on the gate where you get in, just like the bull and bear.
Yeah.
And, you know, and that's what'll happen. That's probably what the lawsuit will be. They'll think they're smacking up some homeless guy, and they're smacking up some kid dressed up like a gutter punk whose family's got wealth and privilege, and that'll be the end of this stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
There are some kids that shouldn't be out there.
Yes.
Oh, well.
There's
Absolutely.
definitely some kids
But,
that are
all
not
right, where do you
hungry
draw
or
the line?
homeless or whatever.
Yes.
Where do you draw
Just
the line?
kinda, I
Because
know
we all
that-
live on the slack that tolerance gives everybody. And when we start picking and choosing, you know, the only thing I personally like to run people out of town for is convicted child molesters. They shouldn't be at the beach or in the park. Because they just give kids room to be kids.
That's a whole different, I mean, we're going to
That is
discuss this in
dark-
future
that is a dark
episodes
road to go down
about
for
the
this.
justice system and the stuff that happens in our justice system. Probably.
But
within
that's
the
part of
next-
class and privilege. You gotta
Sure.
look down on people, you gotta rub their noses and stuff and everything, and that's basic, that's
So
what
is the-
that appeals to.
Is the point that we want to talk to somebody in our city council or our mayor's office or our parks department or our licensing department and get those people involved saying that this is not a fair situation? Is that what I understand? Am I
Maybe it's-
off
Maybe
base?
what we need to do is maybe
All the
do
people out
a-
there, how many
Yep.
people are out there
They-
watching?
Exactly.
You know,
Let's-
right
Oh,
to,
thank you.
can we do
Let's
that
get some
maybe
comments.
next week? We
Well,
find out, get some comments, somebody
Yeah,
kick in.
definitely.
This show's streamed
How do
live.
we do it?
What do people
Somebody
think the
might
solution
see,
could be?
you know, somebody might be an attorney out there, somebody might know
Well, in order
something
to
about,
pursue legal action,
these-
you would
these
have to show
things.
how you were harmed.
Yeah.
How does
yeah.
this harm
Yeah,
you?
see, it does,
Exactly,
and there is
that's
no
why I
personal injury
And so
involved.
unless you have gone through the stages to get a liquor license and comply with the food, parking, the secure environment and all that, then this place obviously does not.
Yeah.
Well, that's what's gonna be the undoing, is
Well-
people shouting back and forth, and
Yeah.
somebody's gonna be too drunk to back down or sneak it through.
Yeah, and maybe let's take an opportunity here. This show is live streamed on Whitney Street Live on YouTube. There's a comment section under that live stream. So anybody watching, anybody that, you know, tunes in and views, please, by all means, chime in and tell us what you think, whether you're in Monterey or in Denmark or in Germany or Japan. You know, what do you think this situation, you know, either negatively or positively contributes to the peninsula and the economy? We also have a Facebook page, Instagram, Snapchat, all that social media stuff that I know nothing about, but have people in place to deal with that. Comment anywhere, and
Bring up subjects
we'll,
that
yeah,
we can use as well.
Right,
you know,
and we'll
things
look
that
at
need to
that.
be talked about.
yeah,
Things that we
absolutely.
need
You
to
know,
get out there.
that's one of the most important things about the internet and about social media is that it gives the average citizen a voice. It gives us all the way to get out there and talk to each other. And that's really what changing and improving the social condition is about, is for us all to be more aware and to have a voice.
And to be more connected, because there's strength in numbers, there's
Okay.
strength in people, there's power in that.
And I don't know, I have ideas, I have, thoughts, you do as well as each and every one of us. But as individuals, we only have so many ideas, but, once we get together as a collective, you may have thought of something that I didn't, or I may be able to build on that. And I think that's an important way for mainstream society to become involved in the homeless problem, in the substance abuse problem, in the justice system, in the legally challenged early probation arena.
Is there a homeless problem really, or is it just a problem that the resources allocated have not been sufficiently allocated correctly? I mean, they've been fighting homeless problems for how many years? How many billions of dollars is spent on it? And there's still, I think there's more kids out there, there's more homeless out there now than there was 5 years ago,
Well,
in my opinion.
what's happened is, obviously, a lot of it's economic, but what's happened really is a lot of people just don't want to be a part of the machine.
Yeah.
They
It's a
really
choice
don't.
for-
I think Dave's a perfect example
So is
of
it
that.
necessarily all a problem?
Right.
You
It's
know?
yeah. It's
not
not.
all a problem.
It's
There
not
are
all
also
bad.
homes
Certain-
that are only used 2 months out of the
Yeah.
year.
Right.
There are also homes that have one person in them or two people in them that
Exactly.
could have
Right.
10 or 20.
Yeah, but that's one of those things that we can't change that. What we can do is help the guy that's sitting on the corner right now that needs the Cliff Bar, that needs the banana, that needs the tent or the tarp or the sleeping bag. Okay, I get what you're saying, and I just dealt with this a couple of months ago with a young lady that I talked with about, the fact that in 18 months we've got over 365 beds available, and in 18 months we're going to have this shelter going, and it's been, I don't know, in the development in Salinas for probably 4 years. That 18 months is stretched into pretty much 4 years of bureaucracy.
Not in my
and-
backyard kind of stuff?
Yeah, and that's a huge problem in and of itself, is that nobody wants this problem in their backyard. Everybody wants to find a solution, but nobody wants to deal with
Is it
it.
a problem if people are just going to somewhere to sleep and to eat?
It wouldn't be, but there are
and to do
solutions.
their laundry and take a
Right.
shower for crying out loud. I
Yeah.
mean, what else do you do in your house?
Right.
I mean, come on.
Let's study
But
working
people
models. Go to like
Yeah.
Sacramento and look where there's drop-in centers. And look at the crime rate in the area around there. Look at how dirty it is. Look at the amount of resources, the city resources that it takes to supervise the people. I mean, talking about police, fire department, medical.
So poor people are hurting poor people?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, they pray. I mean, you
People hurt who they can reach.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
See, that to me is no good. Poor people should be hurting poor people. Nobody should be hurting anybody.
Exactly.
Okay, so I got to chime in on this. I wasn't going to say anything about it, but now I'm going to say something. Monday night, I was at Denny's. I do what I call all-nighters. About twice a week, I'll go out and I'll spend 24 hours out on the streets with my clients, and
Really?
mainly from 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, I'll be out there at Denny's just facilitating clients that just come out at that time of night. A lot
And
of,
that's where
like
you had
Dave
your
said.
feast.
That's where we had the
Right?
feed,
That's
yeah,
where you
that's
set
where I
up
took all the
the
extra food.
food.
Right, and so my bike was sitting right there locked up to the bench, and I was inside at the booth, and I was chatting with the client, and then they had left, and I was sitting there, and it was like 4:30 in the morning now, and there were individuals out front, clients that were out front, and my bike and my stuff is normally very, very, very safe. People respect me, because of what I do, and I fell asleep for like 3 minutes maybe, and then I got up after I dozed. I looked up, and then I was sitting there, and I looked out on my bike, and my cell phone holder was gone, my headlight, my tail light, my pump, and I was just like, I was so upset, just not about the items because it's just stuff, but that, here I am out doing this work,
And this
6
is how
years,
you're paid back.
And this is how and the thing is, let me clarify, the person that did this didn't know me as well, or what I did and to what extent. And so I believe that's why it happened the way that it happened. Later on, my stuff showed back up, miraculously enough, as it usually always does. And no harm, no foul. But as Dave said, it's a
Kind of
dog-eat-dog
harms
world
you
out there.
internally, though. I mean, it
Oh,
just
sure,
sets
yeah.
you off in a negative
Yeah, but it's
way.
not going to stop me from doing what I do
No.
because it's nature of the beast. It's part of what I do. I'm not out there dealing with, master's degree holders and, upstanding citizens of the community, so to speak, what we consider upstanding citizens. Because honestly, some of those people are dirtier than the people that I work with. really are. I mean, in places that I just kind of go, how the hell did you even come to this place of power when you're more corrupt than, you know, the dope dealer down the street?
There is that.
That's exactly. how
Well,
they
you know,
did it.
But don't be
you
visible,
you
they'll put you in
study
jail.
the locals here and some of the financial empires and everything, and you see where their grandkids end up at the transit center.
Yeah.
And you can't help but wonder about karma, as if the grandkids do.
Yeah.
And so you kind of think.
We have a huge population, I would say probably a dozen kids that are 20-somethings that are called dirty kids. Is what,
Yeah,
they're
well, they
categorized.
call themselves that
They-
into the 40s.
Right.
You know,
right.
you're not a kid, you know, if you ain't launched by now, it's probably not gonna happen. You know?
But you know, my point is my point is that, you know, they've checked out from what? I mean, what have you checked out at 20? In the 60s, I got it. We were at war. You know, you had a voice. You wanted, you know, peace and love and all that. And it made sense to a degree. But what are you checking out of in 2016? Maybe it's the government.
It's-
What have you seen out there? I guess is the
I
question.
just don't care for any of it, you know, it's like, I have a hard time even going to the supermarket anymore. You know, because everything, I walk down the soap aisle, I don't smoke tobacco.
Right.
And the reek of the soap, you know, it's not that I'm against hygiene or anything, it's just I cannot take all the perfume stuff.
Right.
A lot of
And
choices.
some of the
soap
yuppies
aisles.
downtown, there's some kind of
Way
aftershave
too
that's
many.
worse than pepper spray for me. And,
Yeah.
you know, people just reek of this stuff, and
Yeah.
it's like, wow,
Yeah. Well,
it's harsh.
speaking of grocery stores and products and stuff,
yeah.
we're getting close again to wrapping this one up. Erin, you have a project that we,
Wonderful project that
yeah,
is finally coming to fruition.
yay.
Me and my friend Kaylee are going to be finally setting up the Cups for Kindness Indiegogo. We're setting it up on there, where we're going to raise money so that we can put together packages for feminine hygiene for homeless women who, you know, need to get a hold of these products, which is a very, you know,
It's a
high
huge
demand
problem.
thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's women are always going to need these things, and so we're going to be starting
Next
that up
week,
this
right?
next week. It'll be ready. Yeah, it'll be ready before the show next week, definitely.
So you'll be able to go to Indiegogo then?
Indiegogo.
For the fundraising, the
It'll be called
crowdfunding?
Cups of Kindness, and I'm sure we'll share it somewhere on Facebook and
Yeah.
stuff when it's finally
We'll have
set
all
up.
the information on the Wave Street Live Facebook page, I'm
Exactly,
sure, and
yeah.
on Humble Beginnings and Medicine Wheels Facebook page as well. And this was brought up because of the obvious increase, 6% in the last year in the women's homeless population here in Monterey County. Went from 30% to
And
36%.
the only difference in need for women versus men is feminine hygiene, and so
Right.
we just can kind of eliminate that in a way and make it so they have that, and now, you know, can deal with other issues that they might
Yeah.
need to deal with, you know?
Well, it's kind of sad that that would even be an issue, but
Yeah,
because
it's
it's just a
unfortunate. It's just the
basic
way of
human
its life, though,
need, you know,
exactly.
but no one thought of it. Even the day that we talked about it on that show, you know, when the host of the show that I was on mentioned it, I mean, I've been doing this for 6 years.
Yeah.
I never thought about, wow, what do women do when
Exactly.
they have that issue that they need to deal with? And
Exactly.
so kudos to you for putting this thing together. You know, we kind of brainstormed
hopes
it
for
all
it,
and stuff,
yeah.
and you're, you know, spearheading this thing, and hopefully Kaylee will be on the show next week when we do the announcement.
I don't know.
and
She
we'll
doesn't
see.
necessarily
Working
want to
with
be on
nice
Yeah,
people
right.
She
in,
wants to
in
be
television land,
the
working with
word
nice people
behind.
out there on YouTube, send the donations.
Well,
so
it
they
goes
can-
to
Oh yes,
Indiegogo.
yeah. You go on
Indiegogo.
Indiegogo. It's Indiegogo.
And
It's
that's
a website. And it's
Okay,
like
not
it's like
on a place, you go on the
no,
computer.
yeah. It's on the
You
computer.
hit keys to get there, you go through the
it's-
tubes.
Yes, it's similar to like GoFundMe,
Alright.
you know, like stuff like that. It's a fundraising site, and it'll be set up under, you can literally just type in Cups of Kindness, and it should pop up and have our mission statement and everything on there, so
Yeah, well,
it'll be great.
looking forward to that.
Yes.
That's for sure.
I'm ready to get that started and start some little victories.
It's important. You know, again, that's just one of the other things that this show wants to promote is anybody, again, going back to comments and talking to us and using this forum that we have, this, you know, internet access and the ability to reach out to the world, the entire world, anybody with internet access for 1 hour a week even if it's just one person in France who buys a sleeping bag for the homeless guy in their stoop, that's enough, you know. But that's the ability that we have, and so I really want to encourage people to reach out to us through comments on Facebook and on YouTube, and any of the programming for Wave Street Live that we have here. You know, please, you know, give us some feedback.
Suggestions,
Yeah, and let us know what, you know, if you have an idea for improving the social condition. If you have,
Questions
you know,
about
questions, yeah,
resources or anything that we haven't mentioned.
let's do this. I think the last thing we were going to actually chat about this week was oh, it just escaped my mind. We talked about it prior to the show too.
Oh, I know.
But anyways, I guess, you know, in wrapping things up for this week, what is your final say on, again, I keep going back to this because I really want to get an answer from you on, you know, positive, you know, benefit at the end of the day, you know, the client, or?
Well, you can't measure apples and oranges in the same way. These people are gonna make a little money, they're gonna get shut down by somebody else who makes a little money. And so it'll all sort itself out, because it's just not gonna fly. But, and it's, and I don't really wanna comment anything on the other issue, because
Right.
that's like a,
Personal.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is.
Well, what have you been doing? I mean, I know you, you've been doing this for 15 years. I mean,
Yeah.
what started you? on-
Well,
Sure.
I was living in Sacramento, and I was homeless along the American River. And I watched dope destroying everybody, and people were killing each other over dope, and I don't even do this stuff.
Right.
And it was all around me and all about it. I'm going to the beach. And, because I remember, when
Yeah.
growing up in Southern California, I remember where people were not always like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, it used to be different here. You come here, Bum Beach, no matter where you went in Monterey, they would say, you should be down at the beach. Don't be here. And so you go down there, you had the beach, and you had Del Monte Forest.
Right.
And it was, there's no hard drugs
Right.
or in the park or at the beach, and that's how it used to be.
Right.
And that's why there was a separate encampment up there.
Right.
And that's all deteriorated, and now they're taking out alcohol on the beach, which is a good thing.
Right.
Because they put everybody together, and that was the only, it was legal to drink,
Right.
and that way they could arrest people. You know, all the emergency vehicles know right where to go.
When did they stop serving, I mean, allowing alcohol down on the beach?
Right after Dano died,
Really?
yeah.
So you knew Dano quite well. I think everybody knew Dano. Dano was an institution here on the peninsula, I think.
Yeah.
You know, and he passed maybe
Yeah.
6-8 months ago.
Well, it was,
Is it a year?
Almost a year, yeah.
Because I know that was after I started the Medicine Wheels project, and I started in August. It's been a year exactly, so probably 9 or 10 months.
Well, he lived in his 70s.
Right.
And that's harsh on a drunk out here.
Yeah, and you know, it was exposure, yeah?
Yeah,
That
well,
killed him?
Well, accumulated stuff. You
Sure.
know, it's drunks usually die of several medical conditions, all aggravated by staph and exposure, and it's just accumulative.
Sure.
But he lived into his 70s, which is pretty good for as hard as he lived.
Yeah, yeah. I met him on a few occasions, and he was a really, really good guy, a really great heart. But man, I was shocked when I heard that he had passed, because he wasn't in that bad a shape the last time I saw him.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, people who drink themselves to death are really dedicated.
Right.
You know, I mean, like,
Yeah, no kidding.
they've got a lot of resolve. That's probably the most slowest, painful, humiliating way to die.
Yeah.
And I watch people do it again and again and again. You know, so
It's not for the
Yeah.
faint of heart,
No.
is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
how many people have died waiting for that shelter to get open?
Yeah.
You know,
Oh,
it's like
man.
when the two guys froze to death here. Oh, if only there was a shelter. The first people they exclude is anybody who's been drinking,
Right.
because that's the Christians always run the stuff.
Yeah.
You got to be a certain way to get in.
Yeah. Well,
And that's not the
you know,
people who need it.
And I'm not going to, I don't want to defend, you know, that position, but I mean, you have to understand, I know personally that it's not a spiritual based decision. It's based on the fact that you're trying to avoid a tense situation like with eye health, you know, completely substance free and by design, because again, mentally ill, you're dealing with mentally ill clients, and then you add alcohol, and then you put 20 people into a closed environment, and you know as well as I do, that's a recipe for disaster. So it's necessary to provide the safe, environment that they're trying to create. So again, not trying to defend any spiritual belief system. As a Native American, I kind of stay neutral on most of that. But it's necessary, unfortunately. But you can't exclude, why don't we have a resource? And I'll ask this question of anybody out there. Why don't we have a resource that doesn't require as stringent a vetting process? And allow, one of the things that I have put together, one of the projects that I was trying to get put together was a shelter with temporary, basically little storage type shelters, and found a resource that would actually provide the funding for about 18 of those. Couldn't find a fellow lot to save my life. Still haven't been able to find a fellow lot. I've been looking for 3 years on the peninsula for a place, and nobody wants to devalue their property by putting a shelter on there, or the neighbors around it don't want it to be in, again, their backyard because of property values and crime rates and stuff that you talked about.
Absolutely. Like in Monterey, they decided a long time ago, they legislated against ever opening a marijuana dispensary here.
Yeah.
And so now you have the dispensary in Delray Oaks and the delivery services. It's about to be legal.
Yeah.
And if some people think it is, but you can't buy it in the store yet.
Right.
But what are they gonna
I
do
thought that
then?
was January 1st, right? They're
Yeah,
gonna
it's gonna
change
be
it, so that
this
beer
next-
garden is gonna be a marijuana beer garden.
See?
This
now-
coming
Vape, or
January,
vaping,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Vaping?
distinctly possible.
These people can do anything these days.
Yeah, it's gonna be
I-
interesting what change that brings.
I, talked about volunteers. I think again, homeless community is the most and best micromanaged business out there. Everybody takes care of everybody pretty much, with the exception of the addicts and stuff who are just kind of in their addiction and doing what they do.
Yeah.
That being said, I've talked with clients who said, look, I'll volunteer. I'll come and I'll work a 12-hour shift in the shelter at this fallow lot. Because again, I'm not asking for a shelter to be built. I'm not asking for a building. I'm not asking for anything. Give me a fallow lot where I can put 18 of these units at, and I will provide you with a staff that will micromanage themselves, make sure that it's kept clean. I've got portable toilets, I've got sinks, I've got the whole thing ready to go, and I can't find a lot to put it on. But I have volunteers that will literally make sure that everybody's on their P's and Q's. I wouldn't, as a part of Humble Beginnings and a part of my project, I wouldn't have the vetting process to where you couldn't come in after having a couple of beers at the beach. Because you're just like any other citizen, any other American, in my mind's eye. Just because you don't have a home doesn't mean that you shouldn't be able to go down to a beach and drink a couple of beers like everybody else who's watching the beer.
Most of the way the homeless are treated goes back to that book I mentioned on the other show, The Dispossessed.
Yeah.
After the Black Plague, for the first time, people could travel freely, and people could compete to hire people, because the first time there's a shortage of people. Always before there had been too many peasants.
Right.
Now there was and so they've tied a lot of charity and stuff to churches because it all came down to your parish. Mm-hmm. You could get help in the parish where you're from, but if you wanted to go traveling, you would not necessarily be entitled to that help in another parish because you're not a member of that community. So it was an economic opportunity, but at the same time they wanted to discourage people from actually taking part of it.
Right.
And so a lot of the charity stuff that goes through the faith organizations, such as the Salvation Army and stuff like that. It's like I used to get on food stamps here. I had a social worker tell me I had to go to the Salvation Army every day to get on food stamps. I said, I didn't come here to enlist in the Salvation Army.
Right.
I just want food stamps, which is a federal program, which you administer.
Right.
You don't set conditions like this.
Right.
And let me see your supervisor right now.
That's a separation of church and state kind of.
That is, but explain to me how that's happened in California.
Yeah, well, when I did Victory Mission, and I don't know if you had an opportunity to, don't bother with Salinas. It's night and day to what's going on here. But when I went to Victory Mission and embedded myself in that program for 11 days, I was talking with the client there, and he said that it was his last night there because he worked on Sunday and worked nights and wasn't able to come to the 5:45 is when they open the door. They have a little ministry for 45 minutes, and then you go and you have dinner, and then you shower, and then you can go to sleep. But you have to attend these, 45-minute kind of ministry deals. So because he worked nights, he wouldn't get in till 8 or 9.
can't
And
do
they
it on
allowed him.
YouTube?
What's that?
You can't
No.
do it on YouTube?
And
You can't
so
do it,
he
the
would,
recording?
but he would actually,
Skype?
he would actually miss the service. And after about 3 weeks, one of the volunteers there made mention to the director, and they actually told him that if he didn't attend church on Sunday, because he couldn't come throughout the rest of the week, that he was going to no longer be allowed into the resource. What? I mean, again, separation of church and state. You're a local resource. How do you make it a requirement that you have to partake in our particular spiritual food
Sure.
in order to benefit from this
What
resource?
if he's a different faith?
Yeah, exactly.
And
You know,
especially with him trying to work, what if those are the only hours he can get?
Yeah.
You know, and it's,
Yeah, and where's the equality under the law? Can a Muslim get a biscuit?
yeah, kind of Muslim, yeah.
That's a golden rule though, right? He who has the gold makes the rules, so maybe there's just been pointed out a need for other people to have those situations
But a
that aren't
rule-
so rigid, they don't need to be there at 5:45, what if they're there at 6:10 or 6:30 or 8:25?
But a rule put in place that
Exactly. When
says
they
no
can't be
alcohol
shown, they
allowed.
can't.
Yes,
Yeah. A rule that's put in place that says no alcohol allowed because of whatever reason is one thing. But to impose your spiritual belief system on an individual in order for them to access a resource, that's where I kind of
it does
have
get a
bit
little,
of an issue.
But even then-
little uncolorful, but
even
still, I
then,
mean,
when
you're
you're-
doing it, I mean, if you,
Sure.
if I was a guest at your home, I would try to respect your
Oh,
laws.
absolutely.
And if, you know, I didn't
Yeah.
like what you were serving that night, you don't mind if I go to somebody else's home.
Right.
And
Yeah.
but
But again-
you're just pointing out that there's more colors in this particular
Mm-hmm.
rainbow than just black and white.
But if you got a job,
Gray is beautiful.
if
man.
you got
I
a
love
job
gray.
today, and this happens in the iHelp program, you've seen it, where they actually allow clients to come in later than the
Yes,
pickup time because
absolutely.
they work.
Absolutely.
Okay, but if
Or
they said,
leave earlier,
well,
or
because,
not do a job or a chore.
but because you're coming, you can't make the pickup bus, then you can't access the resource because you have a job. So you need to be unemployed again in order to access
You
my
need to be
resource.
now homeless, no
Right.
roof over your
You
head,
know,
in order
so-
to do your work.
so
But
how does
that's
that-
catch-22 that's all over the place.
Which is again,
Right? I mean,
my
that's-
point exactly
that's
in
the
the
way the
spiritual
world
belief
works.
system, deal here. You're, because of your, my
But to me,
spiritual
it
belief.
points out that there's a need for an iHelp Prime. There's a need for people that have advanced to the next level of having a job and a place to go in some
Men
kind
in
of
transition.
way to, you know,
Exactly.
participate in the broader community in a more positive way than people who are newly on a mat.
But that's been in transitions, okay? So
You
once
know?
you get a job, and I help, once you've acquired full-time employment or employment, then you can go into the men in transitions part of the program, which is the condos and townhouses in Fort Ord, or former Fort Ord, where they take 30% of your weekly wage and they hold it back for you until you've saved up enough money in order to get a place to get you back on your feet.
that's amazing.
So that's the answer to that question as far as, why is there an iHelp Prime? That essentially Men in Transitions is an
Okay.
iHelp Prime. So once you acquire that full-time employment, then guess what? You've got a 4-bedroom condo that you're gonna be able to rent, have a room in. You pay, I think, like less than 25% of whatever your weekly wage is for your rent.
That's a lot better than 125%.
Oh, yeah, and so they are there, but again, you're discounting and not allowing people to access the resource based on, a precondition or a belief as opposed to, an economic kind of,
Do they want you to believe what they believe, or they just want you to be there to hear
Nope.
what they believe?
they just want you to be there to believe,
Then why
but-
wouldn't Skype?
Well, again,
or
it's
why
not
would-
that he didn't want to
You know,
attend, it's that he had a
YouTube work.
job.
Or any other
This
time
is,
it's
yeah,
open.
this is
you know,
because he
different
had a job.
times.
Again, this isn't because of his spiritual belief system, as you brought up, well, he's Muslim or whatever. That wasn't the issue. The core issue was the fact that he had to work evenings and couldn't attend regularly, and that's where they
Yeah, they need to be
started.
more flexible.
Well, when
and
you're
give
king,
other
things will
time.
be more equitable.
Well, I don't ever want to be
You
the
know,
king, that's for
we'll
sure.
say,
No
well, then
way,
when I'm
man.
king, things will be
No
more equitable
way.
and fair.
Never
In any
happened.
event, I don't think that that's right, and I think shame on those people for doing that to that guy. Shame on them both.
Well, they've refined the program since then, actually, and it has changed a little bit. I talked with one of the volunteers there who said that they have definitely laxed up the policy for, how do you, again, penalize somebody for being employed?
It
When that's the
does
whole
sound
idea,
fairly heartless,
getting
yes.
people back
It's the whole
into
idea.
mainstream society, so. Anyways, I think we've kind of touched on all the things that we needed to touch on this week, and we're, well, right about that time. So, you know, Dave, next week, we're going to see what the comments hold, and hopefully we'll find out what.
Yeah, if I offend anyone with my comments about Fresno, be sure and raise the
Hey,
turtle.
like I said, I am from Fresno.
And did defend
And
Fresno.
Bad things can be
Greatly.
said about anywhere.
That's
so,
right,
you
yeah.
know,
Well, it is what it is. So,
Exactly.
that being said, you know, thanks everyone for, you know, tuning in and definitely, you know, being a part of this. Again, comments, Wave Street Live on YouTube is where we live stream this, and then Little Victories is the show, and Facebook and all the social media, whether it's Humble Beginnings of Medicine Wheels or Wave Street Live. Please leave a comment, because we want to know what you're thinking, and it's just going to help us to improve the social condition even more so. And that being said, anything to add to this?
we've done a good job tonight.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the responses. I really can't wait to hear people when we talk about this on YouTube and stuff. And Rev, you know, it's your turn to shine.
If you don't mind.
No.
I mean, I still haven't lost it.
Yeah.
I mean, that was.
Well, let's
Share
get up and let's
some
say a
more.
quick little prayer, man, and call this a day.
Let's say a little prayer. How about
Yeah.
my friend over
Dave.
here? For your
Yeah, Patrick,
audience,
come and
our
join
audience
us, man.
Participation.
Patrick.
Wow. Almighty God, creator of heaven and earth and all things seen and unseen, visible and invisible. We pray that all good things happen to everybody here within the sound of my voice, through YouTube or whatever. May we all just love each other and be good to each other and kind to each other, because that basically is all you have. May the road rise up to meet you. May the wind be always at your back. May the sun shine warm upon your face and the rains fall softly on your fields. Until we meet again, may God hold you in the hollow of his hands. May you ride in the shadow of Lady Luck's wings. May it be a blessing that everyone you meet and everyone you meet may be blessed by you. In the name of Jesus Christ, I pray this humble, unworthy, and perfect prayer. Amen.
Amen. Thanks, and see you next week. And we're out.